push people away. Most people won't tell you what those are. I will. Today we're diving into social habits that make people not want you around. Some are controversial, some are brutally honest, but all of them are fixable if you're willing to look in the mirror. By the way, if you enjoy deep, thought-provoking insights on stoicism, self-improvement, and navigating life with wisdom, you'll love my free newsletter. Every Sunday I share powerful lessons, controversial truths, and practical strategies to help you level up, all for free. Want to join? Sign up using the link below and start receiving value-packed content straight to your inbox every week. And if you're a brand looking to sponsor my content and reach a highly engaged audience, feel free to reach out via my email in the description. Let's create something impactful together. Now, let's get into the social mistakes, and I guarantee at least a few will hit closer to home than you'd like. 1. Oversharing for validation. When being real turns into emotional exhibitionism. Let's get uncomfortable for a second. Oversharing has become the new personality trait. Somewhere along the way, being vulnerable got hijacked and turned into a social currency. And the more tragic your story, the more attention you get. It's no longer, "How are you doing?" It's, "Let me emotionally hostage this entire room so I can feel seen for 5 seconds." We've confused being known with being pitied. And here's where it gets real uncomfortable. Sometimes people don't overshare because they're brave. They do it because they need control. If I tell you the worst parts of me right now, first, you can't reject me because I beat you to it. I gave you the full mess. And if you walk away, that's on you, not me. I weaponized my vulnerability before you could weaponize it against me. Now read that again. I'm not talking about healthy vulnerability, honest, earned, reciprocal. I'm talking about trauma as audition, performing your pain in the first 10 minutes of a conversation, hoping to speed-run intimacy, hoping someone will say, "Wow, you're so deep," when really they're thinking, "Why do I suddenly feel emotionally exhausted?" Let me give you a personal example. I once trauma dumped on a first date. Not a cute little, "Oh, my childhood was a little weird" mention. No. I gave a whole Netflix original series, part 1 of my abandonment issues, a deep dive into a toxic relationship, and probably a side rant about capitalism and how it ruined my soul. The guy just stared at me, holding his fork mid-air like he was waiting for Ashton Kutcher to jump out and say, "You've been punked." He never called again, and at the time, I blamed him for not being able to handle depth. But now, I know what really happened. He wasn't rejecting my depth. He was backing away from the emotional avalanche I dropped in his lap without consent. That's the part oversharers don't want to admit. Sometimes it's not that people are shallow. It's that you're asking them to carry weight they never agreed to hold. Let's also be real. Social media made this worse. We live in a time where sharing your darkest moment with the right music and a moody filter can go viral. Vulnerability has been gamified, and while I get that sometimes people just want to feel less alone, it's also become a performance, a way to manufacture connection without actually doing the work to build it. And here's the controversial truth. Oversharing isn't always a cry for help. Sometimes it's a flex, a weird, twisted flex that says, "Look how much I've been through. Look how broken I am. Love me harder." But here's the catch. There's a difference between being transparent and being emotionally naked with no boundaries. One builds trust. The other makes people uncomfortable, drained, and less likely to open up themselves. Because while you may feel relieved after your emotional purge, they're left carrying your story without permission. So what's the solution? Start asking yourself why you're sharing before you do it. Am I looking to connect or to be validated? Is this the right time, right place, and right person? Am I expecting something in return for this vulnerability? And more importantly, can I sit with my pain without needing to broadcast it? Here's the wild thing. The strongest people I've ever met aren't the ones who bleed all over the timeline. They're the ones who sit with their scars, quietly, with grace. They choose their moments. They share intentionally. And when they speak, it lands. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's earned. The goal is not to be seen in your suffering. The goal is to heal in silence and speak in wisdom. I had to learn that the hard way. I still mess it up sometimes. But now I know the difference between being vulnerable and emotionally vomiting in the name of keeping it real. So if you're using oversharing as a way to fast-track acceptance, here's your sign. You don't need to bleed to be loved. You don't need to hand strangers your darkest pages and hope they'll read you kindly. You're allowed to be known slowly. You're allowed to hold something back, not out of fear, but out of respect for yourself. And you're allowed to be private, sacred, and whole without telling the whole world why. Two, being negative 24/7, the silent social repellent no one calls out. Let's talk about the walking cloud. You know the one. Not just a pessimist, a full-time emotional downer, the human equivalent of a grey sky with no rain. Always tired, always disappointed, always sighing like they just walked out of a Greek tragedy. They walk into the room and the vibes just evaporate. And here's the wild part. They think they're being real. Let me be blunt. There's a difference between being real and being chronically exhausting. You ever try to have a conversation with someone and everything becomes a complaint? This place sucks. Work is a nightmare. I hate dating. Everyone's fake. This pizza isn't even that good. Oh, you're happy? Just wait. That last one? That's the one that hits deep. Because some people don't just carry negativity. They need others to carry it with them. Misery doesn't just love company. It aggressively recruits it. I've been that guy, and I didn't even know it. A few years back, I hit a rough patch. Career wasn't moving. Relationships were weird. I felt stuck. And instead of dealing with it internally or actually doing something, I started spreading that energy like spiritual second-hand smoke. Every conversation turned into a subtle vent. Every joke had a bitter undertone. Every compliment I gave had a little sting in the tail. And I told myself, I'm not being negative, I'm being honest. I was being insufferable. Being negative all the time isn't a personality. It's a defense mechanism. It says, I'll tear it down before it disappoints me. I'll criticize it so no one can accuse me of hoping for too much. I'll be cynical because optimism feels like a setup for pain. It's self-protection dressed up as wisdom. It's easier to mock everything than admit you secretly care and feel helpless. It's safer to expect the worst than be crushed by hope. But here's the problem. No one wants to be around a joy thief. People will tolerate negativity for a while. They'll sympathize. They'll listen. But if your presence always feels heavy, they'll start avoiding you. Quietly, subtly. You won't be uninvited. You'll just stop getting the invite. And it's not because people are shallow or fake. It's because protecting their peace is not the same thing as abandoning you. Here's something no one tells you when you're deep in it. Your negativity is valid, but it's not everyone's problem to solve. You don't need to pretend to be happy. You don't need to slap on a fake smile, but you do need to stop expecting every space you walk into to hold your darkness without limit. Energy is contagious. If you're always radiating defeat, despair, and sarcasm, eventually people will start treating you like an emotional biohazard, even if they love you. And this is where the real work starts. You have to ask yourself, am I venting or living in negativity? Am I processing emotions or marinating in them? Do I want support, or do I just want to be validated in staying stuck? Because here's the thing, sometimes staying negative is easier than facing the terrifying possibility of hope, healing, and change. I get it. I really do. But the longer you stay in that space, the more isolated you become. Not because people are abandoning you, but because you're building walls made of your own complaints. And eventually, you're alone in a fortress of your own bitterness, wondering why no one visits. So what's the move? Start small. One positive comment a day, one compliment, one refusal to join in on group complaining, one, you know what, it's not that bad. Not for them, for you. Because joy isn't naive, optimism isn't weakness, and positivity doesn't mean you're ignoring reality. It means you're choosing not to drown in it. So if you're that person who's been negative 24/7, it's not too late. You're not broken. You're not just like this. You're hurt, and that's okay. But don't let your pain become your personality. You're so much more than your worst thoughts. The world's already heavy enough. Don't become gravity. Three, making jokes at others' expense, when humor turns into a weapon. Let's address the one who always has a joke, the person who just has to roast someone in the room, who thinks every social gathering is a live taping of a Comedy Central roast, but no one else signed up to be the punchline. You know them. You might even be them. I definitely was. They'll say something slick, then hit you with, "Relax, it was just a joke. Damn, you're sensitive." Or the classic, "If you can't take a joke, don't be around me." Translation, I don't want to be held accountable for being a jerk, so I'll wrap it in sarcasm and call it humor. Let me be real. For years, this was my go-to social strategy. Sarcasm was my armor. Roasting was my love language. If I liked you, I'd roast you harder. If I didn't like you, well, I'd still roast you, just with a sharper blade. I was the guy who could make a group laugh at someone and then laugh harder when they got uncomfortable. I thought that made me clever, charismatic, funny. What I didn't realize was I was low-key burning bridges and calling it banter. Here's the controversial truth. A lot of people who joke at others' expense aren't just funny. They're insecure. They need to be the loudest in the room to avoid being the most seen. They use humor to keep people at a distance, because if you're laughing, you're not looking too closely. And here's what people won't admit. Sometimes when you're constantly mocking others, what you're really saying is, I'd rather make you the joke than be honest about how threatened I feel by you. If I can humiliate you in front of others, I feel stronger. If everyone's looking at your flaws, they won't notice mine. That's not wit. That's emotional warfare in a party hat. But hey, I get it. I used to think I was just being real or keeping it light. Until one day, someone I cared about pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. "You're funny, but sometimes it feels like you enjoy hurting people a little too much." That stung, but they were right. Making jokes at someone else's expense is lazy comedy. It's cheap, it's easy, and worst of all, it's a power move. Instead of connecting, you're positioning yourself above others. You're showing dominance, not humor. You're creating an audience, not a friendship. Want to know something even more controversial? Some people mask bullying as humor and get away with it for years because they're the funny one. But let's flip the script. What if the real flex is being funny without needing a victim? What if the most clever people are the ones who can make a room laugh without turning someone into collateral damage? That's the deeper message here. Humor is a gift. It can heal. It can break tension. It can save people. But when you use it like a knife instead of a bridge, you end up pushing people away while pretending you're just having fun. And eventually, people will stop laughing. Not because you're not funny, but because they're tired of being cut. So here's my advice if this hits home. Ask yourself, would I still say this if they weren't here to defend themselves? Are people laughing because it's funny, or because they're uncomfortable? Can I be hilarious without hurting someone in the process? Because the world has enough cynics hiding behind sarcasm. What it needs is people who can make others laugh and feel safe at the same time. You don't need to roast someone to be funny. You don't need to tear people down to stand tall. And you don't need to be the funny one at the expense of being the good one. I had to learn that the hard way. Now it's your turn. 4. Bragging constantly, even subtly. The art of being loud while pretending you're humble. Let's talk about the humble brag, that delicate art of sounding modest while sneakily fishing for applause. Ugh, I'm so exhausted. Just got off another red-eye flight from Paris. Didn't even have time to post the TED Talk I gave last night. It's so awkward being the youngest VP in the company. People don't take me seriously because I look 22. Haha, I suck at texting back. Guess I'm just too busy crushing 6 figures and working on my 3rd startup. You hear that? That's not humility. That's subtle flexing in a fake whisper. And let me just say this. Bragging isn't just annoying. It's a trust killer. Here's the thing. People will celebrate you if they like you. But if your entire vibe screams, "Look at me," they stop looking, they tune out, they clock the performance. And yes, I've been that guy, more than once. There was a season in my life where I tied my entire self-worth to how impressive I sounded. I wasn't just introducing myself, I was delivering a LinkedIn bio in casual conversation. Yeah, I actually consult for a couple Fortune 500s. Crazy, right? Honestly, it's not even that fulfilling, but hey, I wasn't talking to connect. I was talking to convince you I mattered. Why? Because deep down, I didn't believe I did. Here's the controversial truth most won't admit. Bragging isn't confidence. It's insecurity wearing designer shoes. It's the need to constantly broadcast success so people don't suspect how empty you feel inside. It's the fear that if you stop impressing people, they'll stop valuing you. It's shouting, "I'm enough," into the void because you don't actually believe it yourself. And it doesn't even have to be loud. Sometimes the most exhausting brags are the subtle ones, the constant, casual name drops, the veiled status symbols, the strategic stories that just happen to place you in elite circles. People pick up on that energy. They won't always say anything, but internally they're rolling their eyes. Because here's what no one wants to say out loud. When your identity is built around being impressive, people feel like they can't be real around you. They stop sharing. They start performing. They feel like they're in a competition instead of a conversation. And you lose something sacred, genuine connection. Let me tell you what changed for me. One day, someone I respected said, "You're doing cool things, but it never feels like you listen." It always has to come back to you, that one cut. But I needed it, because they were right. I wasn't having conversations, I was collecting reactions. And the worst part, I was addicted to the feeling of being impressive, but it never made me feel loved. There's a difference between being admired and being known. Admiration is shiny, being known is messy, but real. The world teaches us to build brands, to prove our value, to post our wins. But real power is in not needing to prove anything. Real confidence walks into the room and doesn't need to announce itself. If you find yourself bragging, even subtly, pause and ask, why do I need them to know this? What am I trying to prove? Am I looking for connection or for applause? Because here's the twist. The people who truly have it, whatever it is, money, success, wisdom, they barely talk about it. They don't need to. Their presence, their energy, the way they treat others, that's the flex. So chill with the constant subtle sales pitch. Your worth isn't a resume. You don't need to be impressive to be important. You're already enough. Even when you're quiet, even when you're not performing. And trust me, being real will always take you further than being impressive. 5. Flaky behavior, the silent disrespect. We excuse as just being busy. Let's call it what it is. Flaky people are emotional pickpockets. They don't rob you loud and obvious. They do it quiet, through missed plans, unanswered texts, and that classic, "let's definitely hang soon," that's been floating in the void since 2019. They pretend to give you their time. Then they steal your expectation. And the worst part? Most flaky people don't even think they're doing anything wrong. They're not malicious. They're inconvenient, unreliable, chronically avoidant, and they hide behind that one universal excuse. "I've just been so busy." Let me translate that for you. I didn't prioritize you. I just don't want to say it out loud. And yes, this is personal. I used to be hella flaky, masterclass level. I'd make plans with enthusiasm, cancel with excuses, and feel justified because I had a lot going on. But deep down, I knew the truth. I liked the idea of commitment more than the reality of showing up. I wanted the credit of being a good friend without the cost of consistency. I'd say things like, "You know I love you, I'm just terrible at texting. We'll definitely catch up soon. I just need to get through this week. OMG, I'm the worst. Please don't hate me, haha." It's always wrapped in soft language, right? Self-deprecating humor, cute apologies, fluffy emojis. But underneath all that, disrespect. Because let's be real, if someone constantly says they care about you but rarely shows up, do they really care? Or do they just like keeping you as an option? A backup plan, a warm body for when the stars align and their schedule magically clears. Flaky people are not harmless. They train you to lower your expectations. They teach you not to count on them. And worst of all, they make you feel unreasonable for wanting consistency. That's the emotional gaslighting baked into flaky behavior. They make you feel guilty for expecting basic human follow-through. And yes, life gets busy. Emergencies happen. But when flakiness becomes a pattern, it's no longer about chaos. It's about character. I had a wake-up call when a friend stopped inviting me. Not with drama, not with a fight, just silence. And when I finally asked why, they said, "I got tired of holding space for someone who kept disappearing. It felt like a one-sided effort, like I was auditioning for your time." Oof. That hit me in the chest, because I realized I wasn't just being flaky, I was being selfish. I was treating people like subscriptions. I'd cancel, renew, dip in when it was convenient, never asking how that felt on the other end. Flakiness isn't cute, it's not quirky, it's not a harmless little character flaw. It's a micro-betrayal. It tells people, you're not worth adjusting for. My schedule matters more than your feelings. I'll show up, if nothing better comes along. And slowly that erodes trust. It kills momentum in relationships. And you wake up one day wondering why people stop trying with you, when the truth is, they just got tired of being disappointed quietly. So if this is you, own it. Don't promise what you can't deliver. Don't overcommit and underperform. Don't give people hope if you're just going to ghost them later. Start saying, "I can't commit right now, but I'll reach out when I'm free. I really want to see you, but I need more structure. Can we plan properly? I've been unreliable, and I want to fix that." That's how you earn trust back. With honesty, not excuses. With consistency, not charm. because the people in your life aren't props. They're not side characters in your movie. They're human, they're trying, and they deserve better than being stood up by someone who claims to care. Your reputation isn't built on what you say. It's built on how often people have to recover from your absence. Choose to show up, even imperfectly, even tired, because sometimes the most underrated superpower is just being reliable. Look, I didn't make this video to shame anyone. I made it because I've been every single person on this list at some point. The oversharer, the humble bragger, the flake, the walking thundercloud with a sarcastic punchline for everything. I've burned bridges I didn't even know I was standing on until I looked up and realized no one was there anymore. These social mistakes aren't just quirks. They're quiet signals we send to the world about our insecurities, our wounds, our blind spots. And if we're not careful, they become our personality without us even realizing it. But here's the good news. Awareness is power. If something in this hit a nerve, don't shrink from it. Lean into it. That's where growth lives. The truth is, most people don't leave you because you're imperfect. They leave because you're unaware and unwilling to change. So start small. Start somewhere. Start now. And hey, if you want to keep exploring topics like this with nuance, honesty, and maybe a little fire, sign up for my free newsletter. Every Sunday, I share deep dive insights on stoicism, self-awareness, and the unfiltered reality of becoming someone worth being around. No fluff, no spam, just real tools for real growth. The link's down below. And if you're a brand that values authenticity and wants to partner on content that actually hits, you know where to find me. Emails in the description. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and for the love of all things decent, stop flaking on your friends. I'll see you in the next one.